All right, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of Excellent Adventures. It's time for our winter prep video. So this is just going to be me talking to y'all about winter prep when you got backyard poultry. Some of us got chickens this spring, and this is our first winter that we're having them, and we want to make sure that we're prepared. So there are basically three things that we want to go over: food, water, and shelter. All right, let's start off with water because that's really important. So you want to make sure that they always have something to drink. That's going to be your first line of defense for a lot of things. Chickens will dry out, and it will not be a good sight when you come in there the next morning, because not only will you have dead birds, you're going to have frozen birds. So you want to make sure that they have an ample amount of drinking sources around your coop or around the area that they're walking around and free ranging, if it's in your backyard or something. One way we did it one year is we had buckets of water. So of course they have their waterer, but what's going to happen when the temperature drops, that water is going to freeze up. So what you can do, if you got like a traditional little bucket waterer or something that you got in the coop, just get an additional one, fill that up at night, just have it sitting there waiting. And then the next morning you bring that one out and replace it with the one that you have in there. You can also fill up some pans, but you don't want to like dog dishes or something like that. We did that as well, just so they have another water source, but you don't want to fill it up too far because you don't want them getting all the way in there and getting wet and potentially getting themselves frostbite, because chickens can get frostbite. Their feet or feathers get wet. So hopefully you have the means to be able to do that, where you can switch out the water. There's another way to do it. If you want to go on the higher end, is you can get a heated waterer. So there are some chicken companies that do make heated waterers. They have them at stores like Tractor Supply. They also have them at our local feed store as well as Tractor Supply. So it gives us a couple of options. And those things can go anywhere from like $59 and up, depending on how many birds you have. You want to make sure you have one that covers. They also have the things that you put inside of your chicken water. So let's say you got a top-loaded waterer and it's like a nipple feeder or a cup feeder. They have those heat things that go inside of it. I don't know what they're called, but I'm just call it a little heat thing that goes inside of it. But you also want to be careful with that, because a lot of chicken water devices are plastic. And if you put the wrong type in there, it'll melt the plastic, and then you have a whole nother mess on your hands, and maybe even a barn fire. So you don't want that, or a coop fire. So you don't want that as well. So you got a few options there if you want to not have to worry about taking water outside every day and lugging water in and out of the coops every day. Let's talk about food. If this is your first year with chickens, they will still be laying. If they started laying, so let's say you got them back in April, they probably just started laying not too long ago. Even though it's winter, they're still going to continue to lay because this is their first year. So they're going to lay all year round. They won't hit their molt yet. So you want to make sure you give them a good balanced diet, good layered feed. If you're going to give them treats, one thing you can give them that will keep them kind of warm, because it takes their body a little more work to digest. And with that extra work, it's going to make your chicken heat up a little bit and raise their internal temperature. That is corn. So if you give them some cracked corn, some corn kernels, cracked corn is better. Scratch grain that has corn in it is going to help that bird stay a little warmer, because that corn is going to heat them up. So in the summertime, you definitely don't want to give them a bunch of cracked corn and stuff, because it's going to do the same thing in the summertime. And then you're going to end up with roasted chicken tenders, and you don't want that either. Well, you're the chicken tender, and you don't want those chickens roasted and toasted and overheating. But in the wintertime, it works out pretty cool. So that's a good thing. Also, you want to make sure they have ample food to eat. The more fed they are, the better fed they are, the better they will do against the elements. Most chickens are already built for the elements. Chickens are pretty tough, as you know, if you've had them for a while. But some aren't. We've got some of those designer breeds and bantams and a Polish, and they can get frostbite on those pretty top head feathers and stuff like that. So you want to be careful and stay on the lookout to make sure that those birds have enough heat and warmth. So that kind of moves us over to shelter. So your coop set up. If you got exposed sides on your coop or your run, you may want to tarp those or cover those. You don't want to cover the whole thing though. So what you want to do, let's say if you got a 3-side, and there's a video on our page right now and on our YouTube channel that shows a winter prep for an open coop. Like if you have a run that's kind of got not chicken wire, but welded wire around the sides, and that means it's exposed so the wind can shoot through. And sometimes you get those high gusting winds, very cold stuff to deal with. and it's not very comfortable for your birds or for your poultry. You can tarp the sides, but you also want to leave open a top part about 6 inches open from the top, something like that. It's not an exact science as far as I know, but it keeps a draft wind to be able to go through the top and keeps it circulating. Because if you cover that whole thing, like tarping all the sides of your run without any ventilation at the top, it's going to get a lot of moisture and condensation inside. And that's not going to be good because it's still going to be cold, but it's not going to have that freezing wind to be able to gush through. So if you get some condensation or some moisture when the day does warm up and then it gets cold again, what's going to happen is that's going to freeze and it's going to be very uncomfortable inside of that coop. So you don't want to do that. I made that mistake my first year. Also with the shelter, some people use a deep litter method. If you're in a place that gets pretty cold, deep litter method is what you do is you don't do a full coop clean out during around this time in fall. What you're going to do is just scrape out your nesting boxes, clean off your roosting bars, and let all that poop and gunk kind of like stay on the ground. And then you're just going to cover that up with new bedding. So whether you're using fine pine or pine shavings or hemp or whatever your bedding that you're using, if it's natural bedding that will decompose on its own. Once again, natural bedding that'll decompose on its own. You just put that on top of the existing layer. And what happens is the layer underneath is going to heat just like a compost heap will. It'll heat up a little bit and give them a little extra, just a little bit of extra heat inside the coop. It's not going to make it warm and toasty, but it's going to add a little bit of heat to that coop. So that's going to be very key. We use fine pine and we also use hemp bedding, 2 different kinds. E10 Pet and Pasture makes a great hemp bedding. We use the pine from the Tractor Supply pine, you know, that white and clear plastic with the red stripe on it. We use that stuff, and that does a great job during the winter. We don't use wheat straw for the chicken coops because a lot of times they might carry mites and lice, and we also do spray down our coop, not when it's freezing cold, but we do spray it down with a very pet friendly, poultry friendly spray. And I will put that tag in the bottom of this as well. And we've done some stuff on our YouTube channel with that stuff too. It's called Primo Guard. It smells really good, but it also keeps the pests and mites and lice and all that stuff out of the coop. You don't want that stuff in the winter because wherever it's kind of, warm at or got some animals running around, you could get those. But we don't use wheat straw because it's easier for them to hide inside of that stuff. Right. So that's going to be some coop care. Now, one big thing that people always talk about, do we heat up the coop? If you choose to heat up your coop, please do not use a heat lamp. Heat lamps, just say no to heat lamps. Not because, so you might have somebody that thinks they're Bob the Builder, which is cool. They might put a heat lamp up there and they know it's secure, right? Oh, it's secure. It's not going to fall. It's not going to cause a barn fire. But what you're not taking into account is your chickens have a lot of dander. They're going to be kicking. They're going to be, you know what chickens do? They scratch all around the bottom. They're going to be kicking up the dust. And the more bedding you have, the more dust you're going to have. And that dust can get on that light. And after you get some wood shaving dust on a heat lamp that's getting up to 80, 90, 100 degrees, guess what? A fire is going to happen. Or you got one chicken that likes to jump and flap around and flop around. She's going to jump up there. And if she doesn't hit the lamp, maybe one of his feathers gets stuck in the lamp. And guess what? Fire. Or you get an overzealous bird and they're jumping around and hit the lamp. It falls. The glass shatters. Not only do you have glass on the ground, but you also have another chance for fire. Okay. And another thing, just so hate to say it, but a predator may get in. Possum, raccoon, they climb in. When they climb in, they might knock that lamp over. So not only do you have a predator in there destroying your coop, then you got a barn fire to deal with, and you don't want that either. So say no to heat lamps. If you must heat up a coop, there are some great alternatives. They got heat plates, not to be confused with a hot plate that you use to cook, because you don't want to end up with grilled chicken. You want a heat plate, you can put that in the coop, and that's one of those plates that you use when you're in a brooder box, using a brooder box or something like that. Those, I call them plastic fake chickens, but you can stand them up on the side. It provides some heat. If any of the birds need it, they'll get close to it and get a little bit warm. The only problem with adding extra heat is sometimes it messes with a chicken trying to regulate their own body heat. So when they get with the heat and they're next to it or they're sleeping with it all night, once they hop off their roof, off the roost, or where they're sleeping at, or where they're kind of chilling at by the heat plate, it could be bad. It could be bad because their body temperature is going to dramatically change as soon as they get to move into another side of the coop, and that can cause its own problems. So you just want to be careful when adding heat to a coop. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying be careful and responsible when you do it. A good company that does provide those, one we have used before, Cozy Chick makes one. The same company that makes those really cool automatic doors to let chickens out of their run or of their roosting boxes or nesting boxes. They got a really cool one. So Cozy Chick, shout out to them. You can check them out. And there's some other companies too that provide pretty good safe ways to heat up your coop, because some of y'all are in like Minnesota and places that get really cold, so you may have to add extra heat, especially if you got those breeds that require that too. You don't want their little tops and mohawks freezing up if you got some of those designer breeds. So those are the 3 things for winter prep. I hope you guys, I hope this helps you guys. I hope that this was informational and informative and not boring as a mug too. So check out the full videos of some of our winter prep stuff, including water, food, and housing on our YouTube channel. And you can get all the videos too, of course, on our website as always, Blackyard Chickens. That's chickens with a Z.com. I appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode of Excellent Adventures. This is Love, and have a safe and warm winter.